Today we're going to talk about how to take care of people at work beyond just employee assistance programs. So creating cultures that retain and engage employees. So thanks for being here. And so we'll start with a regulation activity that I really like, and then we'll talk a little bit about the origin of EAPs, trends in healthy workplaces and employee management, helping employees feel better, feel more engaged, stay longer, and we will learn and practice nonviolent communication, which even if you've done it before, it's always nice to be able to practice it again. And I'm a big fan of embodied learning, so it's not enough to just view something or learn something. We have to practice it. We kind of have to practice it over and over before it becomes something that we just are able to do. Especially in times of stress, that it's just in there and we practiced it enough. So that's what we'll do today. So this is one of my favorite tools that I've learned. The first step on the emotional freedom technique or tapping is to go ahead and wherever you are, you can kind of sit up straight, roll your shoulders back. You can close your eyes if you want, and just think about some sort of physical symptom you're having that feels painful or uncomfortable. Or maybe it's something really painful that's emotional. Pick something and notice it. Could be a headache or a body ache. Okay. And now from a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 is the lowest and 10 is the most, how intense is that sensation of discomfort? And put a number on it. Okay, keep that number in mind. And now, the way that we start, and you can just follow along. So you're going to want to copy the movements that I do with your own body and we're going to use our hands to tap different places. Feel free to keep your camera on or turn it off, your choice. So first you'll find this spot here on your chest where it feels kind of soft and sensitive, and you'll just press there and do a little circle, and you'll say to yourself, even though I'm having this pain in this area that I've identified, I deeply and completely accept myself. And so go ahead and say that to yourself while doing this 3 times. Even though I'm feeling this pain in this area, this specific pain, I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, now follow along. We're going to tap on all these places. This is one where you take your hands and tap here. And now there's one where you kind of put pressure on on the edges of your fingernails. Feels pretty good. It's like a little self-massage. There's this place between your pinky and your ring finger that you'll press. You can tap the top of your head and repeat your mantra. And we're going to go through it one more time. And this time, notice if anything else comes up, like, wow, I noticed that I'm also feeling this slightly similar thing, or this thought came up related to my pain. Like, wow, I'm feeling really embarrassed about where I am in my life, or that awkward thing I said today, or the fact that I didn't get as much done. Notice if anything comes up, especially around shame or any negative emotions where you're holding yourself accountable in a negative way. And so we're going to start here again. And so if you notice something else like, wow, I'm really hard on myself for my imperfections, then you would want to say here again, even though I'm really hard on myself for my imperfections, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm really hard on myself for all of my imperfections, I deeply and completely accept myself. And so, whatever one that you needed, you can use the original one, but maybe you need another one. Go ahead and say that to yourself 3 times. Okay, and we'll try it again. Just follow along. I think there's one here. I forgot. Fingernails, top of the head. And then there's also a part where you move your eyes from side to side. And you can count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And while doing this, you can also, the practice teaches you to hum a song. So you could do like happy birthday to you. And this is supposed to stimulate both sides of the brain. So that's the basic practice. So go ahead and take a couple deep breaths and check in with your original pain. And notice if it feels any different and rate it again on the scale of 1 to 10. So for me, I had originally rated mine at a 7, and I would put it at a 5 now. Did that happen for anyone else? I saw a head nod. Go ahead and share in the chat. Okay, 7 to 5. Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing, but it really works. Yeah. So great. Um, yeah, it's an amazing tool. I think it's just the power of giving ourselves some love and some healing attention. And it's remarkable that we have all these tools available. And then sometimes, we just get so busy that we forget about them. So that's cool that we both had the same exact thing, Lauren, from 7 to 5. That's amazing. Welcome, Danielle. The employee assistance program, and go ahead if if you have if this is taking up your full screen, like pull up your chat because I'm going to have some chat questions throughout. So, um this is usually a voluntarily work-based program that offers free and confidential assessments, short-term counseling, referrals, follow-up services. And they address things like mental and emotional health, alcohol and substance abuse. Actually, while I was researching EAPs, I learned that that was actually the origin of EAPs, was that employees were having issues with alcoholism. And so that was why the first EAP was implemented to help employees with that. So, but it could also be something like grief. So that's kind of the origin. So I'm just curious if you don't want to share, you don't have to, but who here has utilized an EAP somewhere you've worked? And what, how did it go for you? What do you think? Go ahead and share in the chat if you want to. How did that feel? How did that go? So for me, I did use an EAP program at my last job, and I thought the quality of the therapy was pretty low. I don't know that the EAP programs are attracting the most ambitious and most talented and most amazing therapists. My assumption is that it's not a position that pays super well. And so I often felt somewhat belittled by the therapist I was appointed, and that she didn't really understand what I needed or what I was going through. And it felt like a waste of time to me. That was my experience. Um, and it seemed like a stopgap for a larger problem that I was having. Um, And you know what? I think it can really help people who are in an emergency to really, connect with someone right away. I think depending on the problem, um, that it may not be enough. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So we have a comment. When we got feedback from employees at a previous job, we found that the process was difficult. The therapy wasn't high quality, and it was very difficult to find a therapist of color. Okay, great. Great to know. And I'll read the other one. Washington State has an EAP which provides a fairly comprehensive suite of services. The legal assistance is limited at best, but you do get someone on the phone, which is a blessing when you're struggling to get traction. Yeah, okay, great. Good to know. I found this piece from 2022 in Forbes, Why Most Employees Assistance Programs Don't Work. Um, and so they blame the stigma of being known to have mental health issues, but I don't know, I have a feeling that it may be something else. And you let me know in the chat if you agree. If your workplace is the cause of your mental health issues, how is an EAP going to help? What do you all think? Is that legit? So, so many, and not everyone who registered is American. But in the US, workplaces right now are a huge cause of stress and mental health issues. So then, referring someone to an EAP where you get maybe, I mean, for example, in mine, I got 3 sessions, but the problem was the workplace itself. Um, this was I mean, it wasn't even a Band-Aid. I was like, but this isn't helping. This isn't fixing the issue that you're literally causing. So, okay, a comment says the EAPs are also typically barred from commenting on workplace issues, with those complaints being forced through either a union grievance process or outside agency like the EEOC, yeah, or NLRB. Another comment says this is 100% how I feel about EAPs. Okay, great. We're on the same page. Okay. Um, so I found a report from this kind of website that I don't know that many of us look at. It's called Insider Monkey, and it's a trading website. And they have some interesting data articles. So I found this one. Yahoo News links back to these reports a lot of times. So the 10 countries with the happiest workers in the world. And I don't know, I would take these with a grain of salt, but I found it interesting. I've highlighted a couple, and I just want to see if we see some trends here. Um, so annual leave of 32 days for New Zealand, the happiest workers. Um, so in Norway, which is number 2, only 1% of employees work very long hours. And they dedicate, and this was tough for me. I was trying to do the math in my head. I was like 15.7 hours to personal care and leisure. I was like, does that make sense? But either way, basically what it's saying is they're not working super long hours. So number 3 is Australia. Yeah, that one's not super helpful. Number 4, also not super helpful. Okay, this one was saying that after they moved remote, that they ended up with a better work-life balance and were happier. The Netherlands, number 6, is known for its exceptional work-life balance, with only 0.3% of employees dedicating very long hours to paid work. So they dedicate 64% of their day for personal care and leisure. And so oh, okay. I'm seeing a comment. EAP is legal and mental health. Yeah, definitely. Yes. I mean, I don't know about legal. So it's meant to help employees with acute mental health issues. And often is like sort of a catch-all, like, oh, you're having a problem. Here's an employee assistance program we put together. So I used to work in the Netherlands, and what I noticed was that people did not work overtime. People left right at 5. And also there was a social atmosphere, like we would all eat lunch together. Actually, the workplace that I was in provided sandwiches to everybody at lunchtime, and we would all sit together and talk. And then after work, someone would come around and like get everyone together, and then we would all hop on our bicycles and bicycle back into town together while talking. Right at 5, no one stayed late, and it wasn't glorified to stay late. Um, and so, some of these listings didn't have really good information, but I just found it curious that there were at least 3 of them that mentioned, and I put here on this slide, what trends are we seeing? What did they mention? What is the trend we're seeing? Essentially that they're not working so much. They have enough time off. They get to leave work. Work is not their life. And there, I think it was a list of 30 places overall. And you can see the link, I put it in here. So for later you can review it. But I would say overall, the countries that had the most generous paid time off and the best work-life balance were the happiest overall. The US was on the top 30 list, but it was at like near the bottom. And so I don't know if you guys know this, but there was a report that came out in 2023. Work stressors are a leading cause of chronic illness, contributing to burnout, depression, musculoskeletal disorders, workplace injuries, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and cardiovascular diseases. And there are more than 120,000 deaths caused by work stress every year, making it the 5th leading cause of death. So it's actually a real problem. So this was a slide that I had in a previous deck that I wanted to include because so many folks who are engaging with us work in social services. So, but this has implications for the people that we're serving as well. So when we're stressed, then we give less high quality care to the people that we serve. So the number one thing, and I looked at a lot of different studies and articles. The thing is, most people in America, and I can't speak for every country, but there's probably some trends there. Most people are not making enough money to just not be stressed all the time. So that's a huge elephant in the room that I think sometimes we don't talk about when we talk about improving worker health. So a 2023 survey highlighted that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, which was a 6% increase from 2022. That's really stressful. That's really stressful to live in a home where if your car breaks down or something goes wrong, you're in a crisis. And that's a really, really high percent. And so what we're going to talk about today is kind of the cherry on top. Well, what do you do anyway? But this is the big elephant in the room, is that most workers in America actually need to be paid more. And so higher pay and more paid time off are going to be the biggest factors that increase worker engagement, worker well-being, workers staying at a workplace. So, when I look back and think about all the different jobs that I have left over the years, it was usually pay. It was. So that's important to keep in mind. This is not an option for every organization. I know, different organizations have different budgets. There's a lot of strain on social services agencies. So, it's just not always something that's feasible. So, when it comes to that, like, what else can we do? If you've taken my other workshops or courses or support groups, you've heard me refer to the work of Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl's a Holocaust survivor, and Man's Search for Meaning is one of the most profound and meaningful books I have ever read, and I highly recommend reading it. And so he basically set out to look at and explain, for the people who were with him in the concentration camps, given just how much despair there was and hopelessness, who was able to find meaning even among one of the most horrific situations, humanity has ever faced. So how did people get through this even though there was so much despair? And I think when it comes to being a worker in the United States right now and realizing that 8 out of 10 people in America are, one emergency away from just completely drowning, this is really despair inducing. This is really, really intense. So I think that in these types of times, we have to dig deep and say, okay, I know I can't change the whole work environment. I know I can't wave a magic wand and pay everyone more. And I am trying, but there's only so much I can do. So what else, what else can we do? What do I have control over? So some quotes from this book. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. So I touch on these a lot in certain dark times, dark experiences that I may be going through, or especially when I'm trying to hold space for how bleak things have gotten for most workers in America, because we can have control over our why. And that includes being really present with each other, holding space for how we feel, and caring about each other. And that's the mission at 10 Collective, is how can we create a caring society with caring workplaces where we tap into that why. And for us, that why is that, well, I care about other people and I'm going to keep showing up for them. We have a comment, workers, we need more time off and money to survive this hellscape. We're dying. Capital. Okay, that sucks for you, I guess. Yep. That's pretty much it. So, treating employees well goes a long way. So, think of a time you maybe didn't have the best pay, but you had a great team culture and a great boss or something else that really helped. And go ahead and share in the chat what was so good about it and how did it help and how did you feel? Feel free to put that. Okay. What's this great boss, great culture thing you speak of? Is that allowed? That, okay. And that is very unfortunate that you've never had that. um, I can think of quite a number of examples where the pay was low, but we had a great mission. I had a job once where I was working just part-time doing marine protected areas evaluations. So I was walking along the beach with a clipboard and training volunteers how to collect data so that it could be evaluated by the state to see if the marine protected areas was protecting our marine areas. And it didn't pay a lot and it was just part-time, but the job itself was really nice because I was outside and I got to walk around and I felt really well respected by my boss. And I was given a lot of autonomy. He was like, here's the goals, go ahead and figure it out any way you want. And so I felt really trusted. And I also felt like given that I had the autonomy to recruit volunteers, that I then ended up recruiting people that I really loved working with. So in that situation, that was such a positive experience, even though I think it probably paid like $15 an hour and it was maybe 10 hours a week, but I made a difference. It really got me through a moment where I did need some part-time work, and being treated well and being trusted went a long way for me. Okay, we have a comment. I'm thinking about a time when I had that experience, but I still left due to money eventually. Yeah. Probably stayed longer due to positive culture. See, and so for those of you watching, wondering, what can we do at our place of employment, it can make a difference between someone quitting now or someone quitting in a year or 2 years. So it really is something that we can have a sense of control over, and it will go a long way. And of course, people will still leave if they have better opportunities. But in addition to keeping employees longer, you're also building something that people really love, which is very meaningful. So we can make changes that help employees feel better. So my top 3 recommendations when I checked in, well, what would I recommend? Number 1, I think all of us here today can agree with this one. You got to fire your sociopaths. You got to fire them. You got to fire them now. People want to feel safe and sane. So I attached each of my recommendations with a basic human need. Okay. People want to feel safe and sane. And I put safe and sane, not just safe, because when you have a sociopath, especially in a leadership role, people start to feel so insane because sociopaths will twist things and start crafting an alternate reality and accuse people. And there's that acronym DARVO. Let's see. Deflect and reverse the victim and the offender. So they will actually, if you accuse them of doing something, they will just deflect it and then reverse whoever you said the victim and the offender was, they'll reverse them. And so pretty soon your sanity is just gone. It's just gone. And it takes a long time to recover from that. So this is probably a number 1 thing. And I'm not like making that up. You know, there are so many studies that show that this is probably the best thing you can do for your workplace culture is if you have a couple of people who don't care about how they make other people feel, you have just tanked your entire work culture. So it's just could not be more important. So number 2, structure, defined roles and tasks, and regular program evaluations, and you want to communicate your wins. So people want to make an impact. And this is something that I have been learning in like talking with people in social services, is that they're worried, like, I don't know that the work we're doing matters. And that will tank your morale and your engagement if people feel like their work doesn't matter. Okay. And number 3 is that you want to coach and train your managers and supervisors to meet the need of people wanting to feel seen and heard. And so if we can kind of think about what are people's basic needs and how can we meet those, we're going to be able to engage and retain employees a lot longer. So in terms of firing your sociopaths, the action item is to conduct an employee assessment. So I have done these. When there was thoughts that there could be someone toxic in leadership, and I was brought in to do an employee assessment to see. So it can be really helpful, and bringing in an outside consulting company to do this can feel a lot more safe for your employees. So this is a service that we at 10 Collective offer, but essentially how it works is that all the employees are interviewed and the consultancy can identify if there are trends that emerge, because toxic employees, people who are sociopathic or Machiavellian, will try and triangulate and manipulate. So sometimes it can be hard to know who's the actual toxic one, but bringing in the right consultant can really help you identify. We have a comment. I was just about to ask how we identify sociopaths when at a certain level of management. Being a sociopath is a net positive attribute. Yeah, I mean, it depends at the company. I think for businesses, it can be a lot harder because that really is reinforced and valued at a business where you're making money selling things. We tend to work more with, and the people who watch our videos tend to be more government agencies and nonprofits who work with children and families. And so this tends to be something where it's not as advantageous to be a sociopath. And certainly they're still getting a lot out of it, still getting reinforcement for asking for more power and leadership. We tend to like to reward that when people, ask for and take power and act in a way as if they know everything and are better than everyone. But it's just not quite as valuable at a nonprofit or government agency as it would be if you were, the CEO of a large Fortune 500 company. So yeah, there can be some differences. Okay, so providing structure. So that's where, not everything that we do for employees is necessarily like touchy-feely. Sometimes it really is a matter of making sure that the structure is set up so that people feel safe and they know what we're doing and when and why. And so, let's see. This again, you'd want to conduct an employee assessment, which we can help with at 10 Collective. So, does everyone have a job description that matches their daily tasks? Do employees know which decisions they can make on their own? Are the mission and goals clearly communicated through a strategic action plan? Is there someone like a project manager tracking the goals and tasks and keeping the team accountable? And so additionally, I had put on the previous slide, you want to communicate your wins. So you need to evaluate your programs. And if you met your goals and you helped people out, you all need to celebrate that together. And people on the team need to know that that happened. If you don't have any goals and then you don't communicate those goals and that your actions worked, you're going to end up with really low morale. So that's so important. So the third one that we're going to practice today is that you want to train your managers and supervisors for emotion and communication skills. So this is also something that we offer. So we can train all employees, but especially it's important for managers and supervisors. I've worked with many managers over the years that were getting feedback that they were not good managers. They weren't valuing their people. They kept having conflicts. People that they managed kept quitting. And it's really all learnable. You can learn all this stuff and it's not that hard, but it does take some effort and some time. And then pretty soon you will have employees that love working with you. So this is such a good investment. And then you're not going to be losing money having people leave all the time. So one of my favorite, I just wanted to teach, there's a million different skills that we could work on. But this one, the thing is, even if you've already learned this from me in another workshop, or you've already learned it somewhere else and you've practiced it, we can always practice it again and come back to this again. So I love that the question is, to start is, how can I make life more wonderful? And it's just such a wonderful question to start with. What do I need in order to make my life more wonderful? And especially, what can I ask for help with? So we're going to practice nonviolent communication. And so it's a practice that helps us clarify what we're observing, what emotions we're feeling, what values we want to live by, and what we want to ask of ourselves and others. So we no longer need to use the language of blame, judgment, or domination. We can experience the deep pleasure of contributing to each other's well-being. So this was founded by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. He grew up in an inner city neighborhood in Detroit, and he was confronted with various forms of violence. And so he started to really ask some questions about why this was occurring and what could be done about it. And so this is what came out of the work he was doing in civil rights activism in the early 60s. I'm interested in learning that's motivated by reverence for life, that's motivated by a desire to learn skills, to learn new things that help us to better contribute to our own well-being and the well-being of others. And what fills me with the greatest sadness is any learning that I see motivated by coercion. So he's been a big inspiration to the way I think and see the world. And, we have another webinar up that I taught about moving away from coercive work environments and how to build consent-based work environments. So definitely very inspired by his ideas. So let's see if we have enough time. Yeah, this is a really helpful video. It just does such a good job of breaking down how to use this in the workplace. So I think it's 5 minutes. So we'll go ahead and watch it. Then we'll practice. We'll practice this and then we'll wrap up.
From Marshall Rosenberg and his pioneering book, Nonviolent Communication. As always, we hope we can inspire you, help you grow your mind, and motivate you to be the best you. In the book, Rosenberg shares with us a better way of communicating with others. He calls it nonviolent communication, a language of life. Communication is a fundamental building block of everyday life. If we want to function well in society, we need to learn to communicate effectively with the people surrounding us. Often when we communicate with others, irrational conflicts and misunderstandings arise, and we end up leaving conversations feeling disregarded or in despair. This is where nonviolent communication enters the stage. At its core is the belief that all human beings have the capacity for compassion and empathy. We only resort to harmful behavior when we don't identify more effective strategies. The purpose of nonviolent communication is to help us connect with ourselves and others in a way that makes compassionate given natural. It is not about convincing people to do what we want, but to create a connection with another person where everyone's needs are met. Nonviolent communication is a way to resolve differences peacefully. It is all about empathetical listening and honest expressing. It teaches us to understand and express our feelings and to hear our own deeper needs and those of others. It evolves around two fundamental questions. Number one, what is alive in you? Or put another way, what are you feeling? Number two, what would make your life more wonderful? Meaning, what unfulfilled needs do you have that I can help you meet? It seems straightforward, but expressing emotions and needs is not easy. Many of us have never learned to acknowledge our own feelings. We have grown up being told things like, boys aren't scared, or girls shouldn't get angry. And as a result, many people hide how they actually feel, even from themselves. Nonviolent communication helps us to communicate our feelings clearly. Nonviolent communication distinguishes between real expression of emotions and statements which are in fact descriptions of what we are thinking, not what we are feeling. Let us give you a couple of examples where people think they are expressing a feeling, when in fact they are expressing an opinion, a criticism, or a moral judgment. Number one, when I feel is followed by that, like, or as if. For example, I feel like you should know better. Number two, when I feel is used together with pronouns. For example, I feel I am constantly working. Number three, when I feel is used with names or nouns. For example, referring to people, I feel Amy has acted irresponsibly. None of these statements is actually letting the other person know what you are feeling. Instead, you should simply name the emotion you are feeling without any judgment. For example, I feel sad because, or I feel angry since, and so on. Expressing our feelings clearly is very important, but we need to also express the need behind the feeling by making a clear request of what we want from the other person. Judgments, criticisms, and interpretations of others are all estranged expressions of our needs. And when we use them, we imply that the person in front of us is behaving wrongly, when in fact we all know is that the person isn't acting according to our beliefs and values. If someone says, "You never listen to me," it is them telling you that their need to be heard is not being met. But because the statement is made as a judgment, the recipient is likely to hear criticism. And criticism often leads to self-defense and counterattacking instead of understanding. The more directly we can connect our feelings and our needs, the easier it is for others to respond compassionately. So, focus on your own needs instead of on what is wrong with others. Imagine an interaction between two colleagues, Alan and Bart. They have a meeting scheduled for 1 p.m. Alan arrives to the meeting on time. Bart, however, doesn't arrive until 1:15 p.m., leaving Alan frustrated. As soon as Bart enters the room, Alan blurts out, "It is really annoying that you are always late for meetings. You are an irresponsible person." If Alan was familiar with nonviolent communication, the conversation could go like this instead. "I feel angry because you are late. I would like to start the meeting on time, since it will otherwise disrupt my calendar for the rest of the day. Can I please ask you to be on time for our next meeting?" Nonviolent communication also teaches us that we cannot be responsible for each other's feelings, but we can be responsible for how we choose to react. Let's end the video with a tip on how to best express our needs. Instead of expressing our needs with a kick-me attitude that implies that they are a burden, Rosenberg suggests that we use a Santa Claus attitude, showing the world that our needs are a precious gift. We hope you have enjoyed this video on Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. Please remember to give.
So I really like the example they use of, how that can be used at work, because we can get to be pretty passive aggressive or just aggressive at work instead of communicating our needs and our feelings.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this.
So the 4 steps are that you have an observation, then you share a feeling, then you share your need, and then you share your request. So in the example that they gave, The observation would be, hey, I noticed that you've been late for our meetings 3 times in a row. And I think it's important to also note that you don't want to use like, oh, like you're always late. It's really important to be specific and to keep things in the present. Hey, I noticed that today you were late, or you were late today and you were late yesterday. Then you share your feeling, which I know I put the feelings wheel on here somewhere. So this feelings wheel, feelingswheel.com really helps. So you could say, I feel over here in the angry column, I feel disrespected, and violated and angry. And whatever may be coming up for you. So that's the second part. Um, the need would be, I have a need to start our meetings on time because I typically, keep my calendar pretty full. And so you typically have something to do afterward, and I really would like to start on time. And then your request, do you think that you could show up to the meetings on time, or do we need to make some sort of different change that will help me meet my needs? And so when you share a feeling, the thing about it that's different is that people can't really disagree with a feeling. It's really based in that connection. It's not exactly based on like, well, I need to be right or you need to be right. It's like, I'm having an emotional experience that's human. I'm sure that you want to be able to feel compassionate for me. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to feel compassionate. I'm going to give you the opportunity to potentially meet my need and to demonstrate that you care about my needs. If you find yourself with a lot of people in your life where you give them the opportunity to care about how you're feeling and how their actions make you feel, and you find that they don't care, then it's probably time to leave some of these environments or some of these people. So what I love about this technique is that you're giving people the opportunity to demonstrate that they care about you. So here's the formula. When I see that blank happens, I feel blank because my need for blank is not met or is met. Would you be willing to? So that's the formula. I have this example. I did use this in a professional setting. In grad school, we all had to take a leadership class. A lot of people hated the class, but for me in particular, I had been working as a leadership coach for many years, and I knew that this class wasn't a good use of my time. So when I talked to administrators, instead of saying, "This is lame, I hate this class is stupid," in which they would have reacted defensively and I would not have received what I needed, I said, I thought long and hard about which need of mine wasn't being met. And I said, this isn't meeting my need to feel challenged. So I gave them the opportunity to meet my needs. And they actually stepped up and they gave me, instead of taking the class with the instructor, I got to have a special mentorship program with that instructor. And I ended up designing curriculum about interpersonal communication in different different situations related to microaggressions at work. And they actually ended up teaching the curriculum in the class. So I got to feel challenged, and they also benefited as well from my work. So we all got to win. So people who care about us want to help us meet our needs. So you can go ahead and share in the chat some other ways that this might be helpful in a professional setting if you can think of any. And we have a comment. Nonviolent principles are part of the AVP program, Alternatives to Violence. Oh, okay, that's great. I love all the nonviolent training programs. I want to take them all. So we're going to do a short activity. I hope you all will be game. I will not be sharing this part of the recording, so I will edit this out. And then we'll just do this for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and discuss, and then that's it. But this tool, I have to say, has been one of the most valuable things I've ever learned for work. I have used it over and over and over and over and over again at work, and it has only brought me made my life more wonderful, essentially, every time I've used it. So, okay, let's do it. 5 minutes. I have the timer going, and then we'll meet back, okay?
I like that. That was good. I kind of forgot about that little template.
That's why I was like, even if people have done this with me before, I feel like there's never enough practice that we can have. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so we're right at time, but really, really quick. Um, if you're a manager, you just want to make sure that you offer this to your employees at regular intervals. You want to make sure you take time for empathy because it's really a practice. It's not, right? We forget to do it. This was a great article that just came out yesterday that Bree shared with me, care washing. So check that out. And we can help, as I said, with all of these things. So, really think about hiring us for assessments, manager coaching, development, training. We can do all of it. And we include DEI in all of our offerings. Um, Additional resources that I think are really helpful, which is this book called What Every Body is Saying on How to Read Body Language. This book was like life-changing for me. The Nonviolent Communication book is amazing. Highly recommend it. And then this course I took back when I was managing a nonprofit in my late 20s. I had, hardly any skills. And they said, you need to do better. So I signed up for this free class on Coursera and I learned so much. So inspiring leadership through emotional intelligence. So highly recommend that one. So yeah, consider reaching out to us about how we can help your organization. We would love to help. And thank you so much for attending today and all of your engagement and sharing so much.